Well, here we are. It is Friday, September 27th, 2024. And as you can see, we're in Hampshire. And I hope some of you got a chance to take a peek at the video we put up just a little while ago today on the Freeman Hindman sale that took place just this past week. It did well. There's a second sale that's taking place today. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the results there, and I'll come back, circle back, and see how the rest of the sale did. Right now, they're up to about the end, getting into the silk area and so forth. But the porcelain things did pretty well. There were some bargains, though, and it seems to have been a completely automated auction. I watched it on Live Auctioneers. There was no auctioneer in attendance. I think that's a really bad idea, and I'll tell you why when we get to that. But at any rate, last week, as you know, we changed the newsletter page around a bit and added a lot of things that were buy it nows mixed in with the auction items, just because there sort of seems to be a shortage of things coming onto the market. But this week it seems to have picked up again. But I think we're going to continue offering, both types of purchases. I know a lot of you like just to buy things that you see, you want it, you don't want to wait around, find out if you won the auction or not, and then deal with the disappointment of missing it. So, you can always buy something. Just buy it now. All right. But some of the things that took place earlier this week, we're going to go back. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, you may remember I mentioned this William Dierhoff dish. This was the religious guy. It was a very rare dish. It was estimated at just $600 to $800. It was being sold by Luxor Fine Art and Antiques down in New York. They also sell on eBay, by the way. They have eBay listings as well as they do live auctioneer sales. This did extremely well. It brought $7,000 plus their premium. So the premium was 25%. So it came in at about $9,000. Good result. Very nice dish. Very rare dish. All right. And this sold just about 6 days ago. All right. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was that in the same sale, they had this Daoguan mid-ching dish with the tigers on it. It didn't sell in this sale with a $400 to $600 estimate, a starting bid of $200. It got up to $300. That is going to be, I believe, on the newsletter page this week. I think I saw it go through as one of the things we're going to share. So if you missed it in the live auctioneer sale, you have a chance to buy it again over on eBay this week. So check that out. All right, it's a nice dish. It's an interesting. I like dishes. I like porcelains that have animals on them, and these two tigers seem pretty animated. I like the way they were done. Very interesting. And one of them, as you can see here, has a ram under his paw, and he doesn't seem to want to share the meal. The way nature is. All right. And the other thing I wanted to get into was I had left a bid on this. I was of a few $100s to keep track of it. I like this picture a lot. I didn't know where I would hang it if I got it, but I left a bid on it. Now, the thing that's important to note here, this was the Eritor Gallery. And they are a very high-end, very well-respected art dealer. They do auctions occasionally. Their price points for their market in their gallery are fairly high. They had estimated at $2,000 to $4,000. But what was interesting was that this sold for $500. They did let it go. So they apparently don't necessarily have estimates that align with or reserves that align with their estimates. They put it up. This is what they're estimating it at, but they're letting the audience decide, which is kind of refreshing. And I think $500 for that was an absolute great buy, and I hope one of you bought it. I really do. I left sort of I didn't leave a big bid on it just because I just wanted to see what would happen with a bid of that size, and they let it go on an internet bid of $500. So that's the deal with that. And the other things they did fine. This was estimated. This was a Tinquois watercolor on pith, very fine one. It was estimated at $1,500 to $3,000. As I said in the preview, it seemed a little heavy, and it was a little on the heavy side, but it still brought $1,300, which isn't bad with the buyer's premiums, right at the low estimate. I thought $3,000 was a bit much, but it's a beautifully framed piece. And Tinquois, of course, was the ran the premier workshop of watercolorists on pith paintings in China at the time in the 19th century. He was the big dog, so to speak, that handled some great stuff, great paintings, and a lot of institutions, the Peabody Museum, the Met, all the museums have work by Tinquois. And this is the Boca Tigris and Pearl River. And they did Erida did the research on this. This was also at Erida Gallery. This was a very fine painting, estimated to have been done between 1845 and 1855. And also with this is also a tin quad, and this is the Whampoa Anchorage, and this was a bargain. The Whampoa Anchorage pictures usually sell for a lot more than this. It's a very, very desirable scene. This is where they sat while the ships were waiting to be brought in to be loaded and unloaded and so forth with goods, estimated at 1,500 to 3,000. Again, I thought that was a little heavy, but somebody got a great buy. This was a very, very good buy, and it was framed. It was beautifully framed. It had a French mat. It's got a $900 frame on it, for heaven's sakes. Somebody got this very, very, very reasonably. That was a great buy. And over here to this, here's another one. This is the watercolor looking up Macau, up the shoreline. This is a very famous scene. It was repeatedly done by many, many workshops, but Tin Qua was the most well-known for doing them. And it was this very interesting perspective of Macau looking down from the north. Really interesting scene. This was sort of a lull. You see, there's not a lot of activity going on, because the ships in China, what people don't realize, they weren't constantly there. They did a trading season, a few months of the year, and then they had to leave. And then they had waited for the next trading season. And then the opium trading ships were, of course, all up at Lin Tin, smuggling away up there, doing their thing. They never came into the port directly, or not knowingly anyway. It was too dangerous. But they would use the island of Lin Tin to smuggle opium out of. But this was obviously done during a quiet period. Very nice painting. This did well, though. As you can see, it brought $2,500 plus the premium, because this is such a well-known scene. Everybody that collects Chinese pith paintings want one of these views of Macau. It's just one of those iconic scenes. All right, and then along over to this, you may have mentioned, I mentioned this last week, this very, very rare Asari Bashir Saf. I thought this was a wonderful thing. It sold with the buyer's premium. It ended up selling for about $27,000. Very, very rare type, 4 by 8 feet, spectacular coloration with these stepped block patterns. Just wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful textile. And it was in beautiful condition. That had a lot to do with it. And it was estimated at $20,000 to $30,000. It brought with the premium, it brought smack in the mid-range of that estimate, right in there. Did absolutely fine. Very desirable piece of fabric. Or rug rather. I hope somebody in an institution will get the chance to display this. This is a great thing. And then over to this. This was something I left a bid on because I love this table. I talked about it. And I did get a hold of Heritage on this. This was at the Heritage sale. I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah, Heritage had this. And I had mentioned that it may have been clipped. And I asked them for additional pictures, and I just got them the other day before the sale closed. And this table was not cut down. The height, there was not a second bracket. Sometimes there is a second bracket that goes off the bottom of the leg, cross stretchers connect it, and that way it lifted it up a little bit more off the floor. I looked at the pictures very carefully, and I saw no evidence of it ever having had a second base on it. So this piece was 100% original, and the crowd loved it, apparently. It was a small table. It was 22 by 22 in size, and estimated at only $500 to $700. I think I left a couple of thousand on it just to see what would happen. And it ended up selling for $2,600 plus premium. So you're up around $3,400 for this wonderful little table. But it was a great thing. It was visually a great thing with spectacular wood coloring, spectacular figuring in the wood. These bands of burl running through it. It looks like it was taken. It looks like it was carved out of a giant piece of root wood, but I don't think it was. I think it was just a figuring that you sometimes see in Asian hardwoods and so forth. These very, very strong veins in the wood that you only get from very old trees. The more highly figured a piece of wood is, the older the wood is. That explains why the early mahogany out of Cuba back in the day, when they first began going into Cuba and Honduras to get mahogany to make furniture in the West, as they went deeper and deeper into the woods, the trees got older and older because they were the furthest in. And by the time they got around to the sort of the beginning of the 1800s, 1810, 1820, 1920, they were getting into some very, very big, very, very early mahogany trees. And that's why Empire furniture and late Federal furniture made of mahogany has such heavy amounts of figuring in it, spectacular amounts of figuring in the wood, because they were drawing out some of these massive old trees with giant knots and burls on them that were measured in feet wide. And the same thing happens in jungles all over the world. They start on the outside and work their way in. So the outside trees often are the younger of the trees they're cutting. And then as they get in deeper and deeper, they have access to the older trees. And then suddenly all that mahogany was gone. They were gone. They got to the middle of the jungle. And after about 1860, for example, you saw very little old growth mahogany being used in furniture in the West because they'd already taken it all. All right. And the same thing happens in Chinese woods. They'll go in and they'll cut woods and eventually get into these heavily figured woods, which are the most desirable. And you end up with a table that looks like this. It's absolutely great. All right. And this, the Huanhua Li Kang table. We talked about this a bit. We had some interesting perspectives and comments under the video we did on this. I had wondered if it hadn't been maybe trimmed a little bit, if anything had happened to it. Is the top replaced? Probably. Who knows? And nobody really came to a consensus on it. But some people obviously went and looked at it. And remember, this had pretty good provenance, as I recall. It had it had belonged to the Empress. Wasn't this the one that belonged to the Empress, the Russian Empress? Huanhua Li Dwanstone top. Seemed to me, yeah, the Princess Maria Romanov owned this table. At any rate, it ended up selling for about, with the buyer's premium, it went right up there. It got up to about $28,000, $19,000 plus 30%. So $27,000, $26,000 for the table. So the estimate was pretty much spot on. It was a wonderful little table, and off she goes. And then over to this. This is the Freeman. These are my little list I keep. There we are. This is the Freeman sale from today. I'd own a bit on this. This was a very interesting bowl. I asked about this bowl with them because the interior appeared to be unglazed, and it was. And I think this was an absolute steal. And I'm hoping one of you bought this for nothing. This was a very, very interesting 18th century bowl. Unusual decoration, unusual pattern, unusual for the unglazed interior, the flat bottom. It was sold by Henry Moog, who's one of the best Chinese porcelain dealers in the United States for many, many years, based out of Atlanta. He handled some great stuff. We did some business with him. He was always a good guy. Knew his potatoes. This was estimated at $800 to $1,200, which I thought was cheap. And for some reason, it only brought $550. This was an 9.5-inch bowl. This was an early bowl. They had extra pictures online showing the interior of it. I'm at a complete loss as to why this sold for so little money. If this had sold for $4,000 or $5,000, I wouldn't have been the least bit surprised. This was a very, very, very unusual bowl. But the truth is that a lot of these pieces, unusual and oddball pieces, often don't get much attention in China. This is something I've noticed over the years. If it's esoteric or strange in any way, or not something that can be easily looked up and referenced for a comp, they tend to fall through the cracks. And many, many, many of my favorite things that I bought over the years, I bought because there was no competition for them, because mainland Chinese buyers buy with known quantities. They buy sort of the brand name, so to speak. The esoteric stuff, the curious stuff, the unusual stuff, they tend to go very soft on price-wise because they don't know how much it's worth. And the Japanese buyers will buy on gut. But the Chinese buyers tend to buy fairly restrictively, only with the things that they recognize, things that fit into all the neat little boxes of descriptions. And I know people who argue with that, but I've seen it happen too many times to think otherwise. And they don't. A typical Chinese buyer doesn't think outside the box. The typical mainland buyer, they just don't. They buy what everybody else buys. It's a sort of a weird phenomenon. This was a steal, in my opinion, as artwork. This was a great bowl. I have no idea why it went for so little money. And I wasn't paying too close attention. I kind of wish I bought it. But at any rate, there we are. And this is another example of that. This is a really unusual carving. This is bone with Senkai decoration. They're dating it Song to Ming Dynasty, which I think is a perfectly fine thing to say. It is extremely rare. Carved and pigmented bone is very, very rare stuff. This is meticulously carved. I do not think it is a modern copy. They have a very good photograph of the back of it right there. That's an old piece of bone. And this was painted and carved a long time ago. There's a stand for it. The stand, I'm not sure. I think the stand is 20th century. But I think this was an outstanding thing. Outstanding little carving. Look at the eyes. The eyes are very Sung. The face looks very much like how they did Sung faces. To me, anyway, it appears that way. And the way the robes are done and so forth. And somebody got this for nothing. $600 plus premium against a $1,000 to $2,000 estimate. So there wasn't any reserve on it. This was at Freeman's. And this is the problem. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. This appears to have been a completely automated sale. And I think automated sales are the stupidest auction you can run if you're an auction house. I'll just say it. I don't know why. Maybe Freeman's, Heineman's, they're just doing it as an experiment. Don't ever do it again. You are disconnected from your audience if you do these sales. If you watch Ben when he did his sale this week, he's got such a good personality. I did the video on it. He's personable. He's got the crowd laughing. You can hear the energy in the room. That energy is infectious. Part of the magic of live auctions is the infectiousness and the excitement of being there. And if you can't be there and you're on a camera and you're broadcasting out, at least you're sort of there. You're sort of in the room. You get a sense of what's going on. We saw it also with the Doyle sale. They had the cameras in the room, the audio. Yeah, they had problems. So what? You have problems in live auctions too. I can't tell you how many times I was doing live auctions and the mic would skip out. Something would happen. Yeah, you do it on the fly. You fix it. You deal with it. You adapt and move on. These live sales where you're just looking at a computer and the computer's telling you to hurry up is the most impersonal, vulgar thing an auction house can do to a customer. I'm just going to say, I think it's absolutely insulting. If I were a consignor, I wouldn't be happy about it. All right. You have the staff, you have the people there. They're on the payroll. Put up a camera, somebody in front of a camera, have them talk to the crowd, have them involve themselves with the crowd, that human connection. Get that human connection going and you'll get much better results. Because I don't think the results for this sale were particularly good, to be honest. They did okay. They got some good prices, but nothing. I think they would have gotten maybe 30% more money had they put a live person on a microphone and run it like a real auction. But this automated stuff is for the birds. It really is. And I've heard from auctioneers. There was another auctioneer that actually got a hold of me who had done one of these live feed auctions. It was a fiasco. It didn't work out for them at all. You're not connecting with the audience. You have auctioneers, you have staff, you have the equipment. The sale only takes a couple hours. For heaven's sakes, do it with people. Do not turn it into purely a disconnected event with numbers and screens. I think it's a really dumb thing to do. All right. Done with my rant. Okay, now we move on. Sorry about that, Freeman's, but you should never do another one of these computer auctions ever again, ever, for any reason. You've got the people, you've got the money, you've got the staff, you're already paying them. It doesn't cost you a dime to set up a camera. It's just the stupidest thing. All right, put Ben on, have Ben sell all this stuff. Ben's got a great voice for auctions. He knows how to do it. He's personable, and everybody likes him. All right, now on to this. This was a bargain. This was a very, very nice. It was Zeton. It was probably a Ming. It was a very, very good brush pot, and it went for nothing. Gave it away. This was a terrific pot. It should have brought $4,000 or $5,000. It was a very, very good brush pot. It has all the signs of age. It is Zeton. It went for nothing. This is what I was talking about. This is the kind of thing that would have done very well. This went for nothing. This was a very, very good bronze, and it should have brought the estimate. Should have easily brought the estimate. It only had 9 bidders watching. I don't know what happened, but this was a great buy. This was a really, really good buy. If you look up old bronzes, you'll see what I mean. And I don't mean to be too hard on them, but the auction market's in trouble, and this automation stuff isn't helping at all. All right. All right, and then over to this wonderful Kangxi dish. I don't know why gave it such a low estimate. It's either Kangxi or Transitional. It was sold originally by Frankel, and Frankel is a very good dealer. But at the time they sold this, there wasn't a lot going on, discussion about transitional wares, and they called this Kangxi. If it's Kangxi, I think it's probably pretty early Kangxi, but very very nicely done. I think the lighting was a little strong on it. But I was at a complete loss to say possibly 18th century. If Frankel said it's 18th century Kangxi period, or earlier, but you can believe him. Apparently the audience did, because it sold for $6,500 plus premium, around $7,500 against an $800 to $1,200 estimate. This was a good sized bowl. It was 5.5 inches. It was very, very rare type. It almost looks transitional in the way some of the work is. It's got an alohan and a tiger on it. I don't understand. They had 29 bidders watching it with a very, very, very modest estimate. It did great. It did great. It was a beautiful piece of porcelain and a rare piece. This was a rare piece. Very nice. All right. And then hopping along over to this garlic neck, mid 18th century or later. No, it's 18th century garlic neck glazed Yixing ware. And they, for some reason, said possibly Yixing. Well, there's the bottom of it. That's Yixing. And they did do these. I've owned these over the years. I've had a number of these. I had a really nice flambe glazed Meiping that was done exactly like this. I've had a couple of them, actually. This is a nice piece. This is a very, very unusual and rare piece. And as we saw in the other Freeman sale, how well some Yixing does, because they had the brush washer that brought $320,000. So there's definitely a market out there for Yixing. And this was a great thing. This was a very unusual form, very unusual glaze with modeling of a chimera. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm back. Neighbors came by. I guess our dog was over visiting, and they wanted to make sure he got home safely. So he was up across over by that brook. Anyway, here we are. So anyway, this was a wonderful thing, and it absolutely is, from what I can see, 18th century and a rare bird. These glazed and especially mixed glazed Yixing pieces are pretty rare. And they end up with this kind of auction result, which in the end ended up around $11,500, $12,000 for it. Very good price. That was good. And then over to this. I had mentioned this last week specifically. I thought this was such an interesting piece of porcelain. And I do hope one of you bought it. Very, very unusual bottle form with this light green chimera climbing down over it, and the fish decoration and all this. Certainly looked like an 18th century ceramic to me. Very, very nice, and it brought a good price. I don't think it brought what it could have. To be honest, I think it probably was deserving of another couple of thousand on there. It was estimated very, very modestly, but it ended up selling for around $4,000 with the premium, roughly a little over $4,000. I thought it might have brought $5,000 to $7,000, somewhere in there, maybe certainly $3,000 to $5,000. But it was a nice thing. This was unusual. Often slip through the cracks. This is unusual. This is a highly unusual piece of porcelain. And then over to this, the red glazed jar with the coral red with the cobalt, very attractively done. And again, this was a Moog piece. Had a Kangxi mark on it, but it was probably late 18th century. I don't think it was Kangxi, but very desirable colors. And it had its lid, which is magic. And it sold for around $6,500, $7,000 with the premium. Not a big surprise. I thought the estimate was very modest. I thought it certainly would get there, and it did. It did. This is one of the highlights of the sale. I thought were very good. And then this had a mysteriously low estimate on. I'm not sure why. It might have had a repair or something, maybe. It had a liner on the bottom, any staples or anything. I couldn't figure out why this had such a low estimate. It was a very nice Ming jar, very unusually decorated, very loosely done. I think it was absolutely fine as Ming, sold for $3,000 plus the premium. And it was a big jar, as you can see. This is a pretty good sized pot. It was 16 inches tall, but it was elongated. Most of these Wanderlei jars tend to be a bit squarer in the shoulder, with the coming off the neck down. And like I have a similar one at home, a Guan, and they're a little bit different. This one is more elongated, though. I thought the form was interesting. Ended up going for $3,000. I think that was a very, very reasonable purchase. Nice looking porcelain. And then over to this. Now this This thing had dated as 20th century, and I had two inquiries about this desk. Had 36 people watching at Huanhuali mixed wood writing desk. They dated it as 20th century. I didn't see the drawer construction. I had no way of really looking at it, but the hardware, the way the panels, the way the raised panels were done, the configuring of the wood, the way it just looked. I wasn't convinced at all that it was a 20th century desk. I thought you got to see the construction. You got to look at it internally because it has. If it's an old one, it was refinished. But they did refinish these, especially in the stores in Hong Kong and so forth. But it was very nicely done. Beautiful wood figuring, spectacular Huanhuali wood. Really great. And it had an insanely low estimate. The one person that asked me what I thought it would bring, and I said, it sounds crazy, but I bet it brings over 20,000. And it did. It brought 25 plus the premium. The $1,500 to $2,500 estimate was exceptionally reasonable. But it was a beautiful thing. It's just a beautiful piece of furniture. And it's the kind of furniture you could work with. You could put your computer on it and so forth. Very, very attractive. But it was one of the prettiest ones I've seen in a while. Very nice. But I wasn't convinced that it was as recent as they thought. I just wasn't. I just didn't see it. All right. And then hopping along, there's a couple of sales coming up I wanted to talk about. One of them is this sale. This is Ollers and Ogletree down in Atlanta. And every time you see an Atlanta sale, it has Chinese stuff in it. It's always going to have stuff from Henry Moog in it. His name keeps popping up over and over and over, but people don't realize how much stuff he sold. He was a very active dealer for decades. And this is something that's in this sale. Now, it has a Yongchen mark on it. I don't think it's Yongchen, but I do think it's an old pot. I think it's probably late Qing or Republic. There's the bottom of it. The mark doesn't look quite right for Yongchen, but the paste, the color of it, and so forth. This looks like a late Qing example. It's very, very attractive. It's 9.5 inches tall, 14 inches wide, and it is all unway decorated with lotus blossoms and vines. This is an interesting thing. You want to take a look at this. This is coming up on I think it's the 10th of October. 10th of October. This has got a couple of weeks. It'll be on the global pages by tomorrow morning. We're going to update everything tomorrow morning. And there's a bunch of interesting things in this sale. If you have anybody who has a wedding coming up and you don't know what to give them, buy these. These are wonderful 1920s, very Art Deco. Apparently they're jade frames with maybe carnelian inserts at the top. These are elegant. And they're like something you'd see in a 1930s movie with, Katharine Hepburn or something. Absolutely wonderful. Silk backs, stands. There they are. These would make spectacular gifts, or if you have wedding gifts or pictures of your grandchildren that you haven't found the right frame for, these are absolutely exceptional. These are absolutely exceptional. If they cost you $1,000 a piece, go for it. They are worth it. These are beautiful. They're good size. They're 12 by 9 inches. Spectacular quality. Very, very, very beautiful. They will be on the global pages this week. I love stuff like this because you can use it. It'll look great in a nice living room setting or in a bedroom. That pictures of people you love, put them in there. Very, very nice. And you'll have them for the rest of your life. They're beautiful. And then over to this. Now, this is an interesting plate. It's a Kangxi plate. Let's see. It is 15.5 inches in diameter. They haven't dated it for some reason. I don't know why. It's Kangxi Amari ware. But what's interesting about it is you flip the thing over. Look at the back of it. I think it was worth buying just for that. All those staples that they had to pull out. This thing looked like a zipper. Now, the thing about staple repairs is that the more somebody loved a piece of porcelain, the rarer it was, the more precious it was. You paid for extra staples. You paid for each staple because each one of them had to be hand drilled usually by itinerant repairers. They would come around and they had a little thing that looked like the little bow with the string that you would start fires with, only it was a drill bit. And they would drill and make these little holes and then fit the staples in, and sometimes use maybe a little hide glue to epoxy it together. But look at this thing. This thing was shattered. Somebody loved this plate. It was broken badly into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 huge pieces. And somebody went to great trouble to put this back together. It's worth having just because somebody liked it that much. The stand, who cares about the stand? But at any rate, the estimate is nothing. $150 to $300. Got a $70 opening bid. It's only got 3 people watching it, and I'll bet this goes for under $200. It's a very interesting piece of porcelain. If you like things that have been, repaired, make-do pieces, and so forth, this is an interesting thing. But I think it's great that it still has all the staple holes in it. Somebody obviously took the staples out and used a more permanent adhesive for it, but very interesting work. And then over to this. This is also on the sale. These are all, I think all of these were bought from Henry Moo. Whole bunch of 18th century blue and white wares, sort of like an instant collection. You've got several different patterns here. You've got apparently 3 in this pattern, 2 in this pattern, 2 or 3 in that pattern, 3 in this pattern, and so forth. All interesting, well-known patterns. Altogether, there are 17 plates here. Some of them, I'm sure, have repairs and damage and whatnot, but the estimate is very reasonable. $50 to $700 for 17 plates. That works out to about $30, $40 a dish. Very fair. There's 7 people on that. And then over to this. Now, this is something you want to get more pictures of. It appears to be a Kangxi bowl. They haven't identified it as such, but if this is a really rare bowl. I'd want more pictures of it. I want better pictures of that bottom. But do check this bowl out. It does definitely appear to be an 18th century bowl, but when in the 18th century is the question. But this windswept willow trees with this area on the side of a farmer with his ox in a poem. This is a heck of a bowl, and the estimate is peanuts. I'm not quite sure why. It's 7 3/4 inches in diameter. I bookmarked that to put it on the newsletter, on the Global and Patreon pages this weekend. Very, very interesting thing. And then over to this, a nice Ming plate, 10 inches in diameter, done in that sort of reverse white on blue, blue against white technique with a couple of phoenixes. It's a well-known pattern, but it's a nice example of it. And the back of it is just gummed up to pieces with all kinds of kiln grit, which you often see on those. The estimate is peanuts, $200 to $300. And then the last thing is this. There's other stuff in here. There's a whole bunch of it. They do have some repros in here, so I'm just going to caution everybody. If it's not on the global pages or on the Patreon pages, what we're saying is we don't trust it. There are copies in this sale. Not everything in this auction is authentic. All right, they've taken in some unfortunate repros, and some of them are fairly good. But so just be careful about that. That's all. But we're going to put them on the Global and Patreon pages, the ones that we like. This is a nice group of 4 18th century soup bowls, well-known export pattern from about 1780s. Nicely done. This is a pattern you often see in French collections, which is sort of interesting. It's a pattern that you most often see over there. There you are. Nice looking group. 4 of them. $400 to $800. $200 opening bid. Worth it. Each bowl measures 9 inches diameter. These aren't little bowls. These are good sized bowls. So they're certainly worth, $60, $70 a piece, $100 a piece. So you're sort of right up to the low estimate right away, right off the bat. And but they're all nice. They're all nice. So don't be afraid of them. All right. In any way. Now over to the newsletter page. One of the things I wanted to mention was this was on the newsletter page last week. I don't believe this is a pen wash and tray. I believe this is an opium prep stand. The opium would sit on top of that little raised plinth. And they would work it there, and then the pipe would sit in that. And it's only $15. If you're interested in the opium history of opium and so forth in China, this isn't a bad thing. It's marked China. It was probably made around 1900 to 1920, late in the opium trade, but it is a form and type that was used often in opium preparation. So if you have opium stuff and you've been looking, or not that you're using opium, but you have opium lamps and that sort of thing and pipes, this, I believe, is an opium stand. I don't believe this was a pen wash with a bronze tray. It isn't deep enough to hold a wash. And then this was on there. This was also that company Luxor that had that very rare, the Duhoff plate. They had this. They get some interesting things. And we've seen this pattern before in auctions, and they always do well. I think Rob Michaels had one a couple of years ago. Some of you might recall. I think it was Rob. Somebody over in Europe had one, and it did very well. It also brought $2,000, $2,400. Here's another one, $2,025. Very, very desirable type of plate. And I think one of these these had been on eBay before, as a matter of fact, but it's an 18th century dish, nicely done, rare bird. And again, rare things always sell well. They just do. And then over to this little incense burner. They had dated as song to what are these? A Southern Song or later. I think it was probably a late Yuan or Ming example. This was a very, very nice piece of crackleware, though. Regardless, you'll have to go around. The form of it looks a little bit more like Yuan to Ming to me, but it's very, very nicely done. Nice color, nice bluish tinge in the glaze. There's the bottom of it. Absolutely fine. I love this thing. This was great. And it did fine. It brought $3,161. And it had a very nice stand. The stand wasn't as old as the piece, but it was a nice old stand made to go with it, probably in the later 19th century. Good color in the wood. The stand was probably worth around 500. But it was a nice package. This was a very, very good thing. And this came from the eBay consignment store down in Winter Park, Florida. They get some good things in Winter Park. All those retirees go down there and they die, and then all their stuff ends up on eBay. And then there's a pith painting. This is coming up. I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's the watch list. Let's see here. There we go. This is a really nice pith painting that's going to be on the newsletter page this week. A beautiful butterfly, mid-19th century, probably about 1850, but nice quality. And the paper looks like it's in very, very good condition. And I don't know if the guy has more of these. Usually if they've got one of these, they've got a few of them, because these were done in sets of 10 and 20 with blue binders and so forth. So you may want to bookmark this guy and see if he's got some more of them coming up. But this is a very good pith painting, and it should bring a couple of $100. Right now it's at 15 US, and it closes on Saturday. It closes tomorrow, and it has almost no interest. I find that astounding. That's a beautiful little painting. It'll be on the newsletter page tonight. Go whack this thing for $100. You will be happy you did. And then over to this. This has just popped up this morning. We came across this. This is UK Asian Art has this. This is a very nice bowl. It measures, it's a turquoise. Monochromes are popular right now, as everybody knows. It measures a little over about 9 inches in diameter, but very nice color. And it certainly appears to be an 18th century bowl, from what I'm seeing. Nice color. There's the bottom of it. There it is. That is all the hallmarks of at least mid to late 18th century bowl. I think it's very nicely done. I had a Kangxi bottle vase that was about 18 inches high once that was this color, that I actually bought from a dealer in New Hampshire who thought it was a Waji ware for $100. It was sort of one of those lucky moments in life. Anyway, it went to London. But this is a very, very nice bowl. And right now it closes on Sunday and it's only up to $11, $15. It should bring $500 to $700. This is a nice porcelain. It's a very nice bowl. And the shape is beautiful. The shape is very, very nice. And it's not a late Qing example, in my opinion. And then the pair of Femivere parrots. This is also UK Asian Art has this up. These are quite nice. They're at least 19th century. I can't tell too much because the color, but the aubergine to me looks like 19th century, but very, very attractive. There's the underside of them. That looks fine as 19th century, at least. Beautifully done. The Kangxi ones of these, of course, bring $5,000 to $7,000. This one's only up to $69. It closes on Sunday, and these are nice size. They're like 8 inches tall. 8.5 inches tall each. They're good sized. They should bring, as 19th century examples, they should bring again $600 to $800. So we'll see what happens next week when we go back and take a look. And then this is a nice little Wan Li bowl, very delicately painted. It's Ming Yao. It's Ming Yao ware. It's not imperial or anything, but it's very delicately painted. It's got this nice little copper rim that's been added to it. It's a nice package. I don't like the stand. The stand is rubbish, but the rest of it is very good. Find a good stand for this. It'll make it look a heck of a lot different. There's the bottom of it. All right. Nice, with the Fuku mark on the bottom, but absolutely lovely. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good little bowl. Is there a crack in it? I didn't see that before. Wait a minute. Is there a little hairline in it? No, hold on a second. Mm-hmm. Oh, it has a hairline in it. That's what's holding it back. That's too bad. I'd still buy it. It's still worth $7,500 because it's nicely painted. But the hairline is a problem. That may be why they put the copper rim onto it. May have had a hairline and somebody applied a copper rim to it to keep it from getting any worse. Still, nice bowl. I'm going to still leave it in the newsletter. Why not? Still worth $100 to $150. And then this, Josh Chamberlain, Chamberlain Antiques, he's got a sale up. I guess it went up after we posted last week or something. But at any rate, it closes. Yeah, it must have because it closes on Monday. It doesn't close on Sunday. That means he put it up Friday night. I missed it because I didn't. I've been up here for a few days. He's got some jades on still. He had those very nice jades a couple of weeks ago. He's got the nice snuff bottles. He's got a couple of good looking snuff bottles on here. And there's another dealer from New Hampshire, Steve. He's got a very nice Peking glass snuff bottle. It's also going to be in the newsletter page this week. What is it? Coast to Coast Antiques. That fellow, he's an active dealer, but this is a nice looking piece of amber. It certainly looks like amber to me. And then he also has up this rather nice little jade figure, 18th century carving. This is a good jade. Nice details as far as I can tell. Looks like it's in good shape. Right now it's up to $856. Should bring 2,000 or 3,000. We'll see next week how it does. But it's a very desirable little form. It looks like a good 18th century one. Nicely polished all the way around, good detail and all that stuff. All right, so that's sort of it. There's a lot going on still, and now I think we're going to see a lot of pieces turning up. Dealers that went to all the Asia Week sales, people that went to Bonhams, people that went to Sotheby's, people that went to Doyle's and Freeman's, and now they bought those lots. So they're going to break them up, and they're going to be posting them on different sites, posting them on their own websites probably, and selling things, and hopefully it'll carry them right through to the winter. All right, so there's a lot happening, and I think as I mentioned the other day, all the naysaying and the concern that everybody had about the Chinese economy and the global economy, I don't think it may not be as bad as people think it is, which is very good. You don't want economies around the world suffering. You don't want weak economies. You want economies to all be prosperous. You want the Chinese economy to be very prosperous. You want the U.S. economy to be prosperous. Because if one is weak, they're all weak. All economies affect other economies. So I was very happy to see some of the results out of New York last week, where the good things that came up still had money available to buy them, and buy them for good prices. Overall, I think Asia Week was a real good litmus test, as we thought it might be, how things look right now. Interest rates are starting to come down a bit. Let's see where we go from here. All right. And that's all I have to say on it. So if you enjoy the videos, please subscribe here on YouTube. If you want to learn more, come over to bidamount.com and use the website. It's all kinds of reference material and stuff on there, the newsletter page, all that's all free. Come in, and we go on. And thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you like it, and see you next time. And we're working on a couple of videos that may be a little controversial about something that's going on in the antique and auction market. And we'll see how you feel about it. You're all interested in it. You're all collectors. You're all people that follow the markets. And we're all sort of in this boat together. So we'll go from here. All right. Have a great weekend. And from New Hampshire, see you all soon. Bye-bye.